Hello, and welcome to the Supercoach Hub BBL podcast. I'm your host, Nathan from Supercoach Guns, and this is the very first of the BBL podcast series. Now, BBL Supercoach just opened up today. As of 12 o'clock, it opened. And we're going to give you pretty much not a raw reaction because it's been 2 hours since it open, but I'm going to run through very quickly what's in this podcast for the season, for the pre-season at the very least, and then in the season, just some general things to watch out for and from us. So release times, that's going to be a key one in the regular season, the round. So we'll be recording first thing in the morning after a change of round. And we'll try and have the podcast released by midday on that day, whether it be viewed on YouTube or listened to on Spotify. It'll be out by midday in Australian Eastern Daylight Time. But in the pre-season, what can you expect from this podcast? Well, we're going to be doing 8 team previews, starting with the first one today. And in each of these team previews, we're going to go through the predicted 11s, the form guide of each of those players in that team. We'll give a quick Supercoach analysis on, what can we expect from certain players in this team and how they perform. The early schedule for some of these guys and ground data, which I think is a very important thing for Big Bash that doesn't get covered as much as it should, because you sort of just take into account the players. Not much consideration goes into the pitch report and that. And so what we're going to do in this pre-season series is look back at BBL 12 and see what happened at these grounds, and just take some notes away from that. There's some stats to go with it. Is what is considered widely about each individual grounds actually true? We don't know. We'll have a look into it though. So what we'll do is we'll start off by making sure that you are on our Discord, Supercoach Hub. You're following us on socials at Supercoach Hub on Instagram and Twitter. The link is in the bio of each of those for the Discord servers. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify. And yeah, let's get straight into it. Today we're going to look at the Melbourne Stars. Now, the Melbourne Stars, they've got an interesting team here because it's got tons of stars. Haha, pun. That's bad. Got tons of big name players, but not all that much form. They came last at the end of in BBL 12, so they'll be hoping for a bounce back season, and they've got on paper probably one of the best rosters in the comp. But that's always the case. So, if we have a look at their openers, Harry Brooks, the first big name. They selected him first overall, and he is $160,000 as of, to start the season. 160 grand. I think that's a pretty fair price. I expected him to be 180, but I would have made peace if they'd named him. I would have made peace with 180, but I'm glad he's 160, because I think I reckon that 160,000 is roughly where his value lies. I think he's priced at value because he'll have some low games, but he'll also have some high games. What you're hoping is that I think he's too expensive to start and too volatile to start. So I think you just have to skip him round 1, hope he has a quiet double, drops a lot in price, has the buy round 2, pick him up round 3 for, let's say, 15, 20k cheaper. And, write it out from there. But 140k for Harry Brooks, quite the steal, particularly when he's one of those guys that doesn't really have form ever. He just scores big runs at random occasions. So I'll run you through what he's done in the 100. So he scored 63 off 27 with a catch, 0 and a catch, 4 runs, 20 off 14, 44 off 24, and then out of the blue, 105 off 42. Then against New Zealand in a T20 series that happened in September, he goes 43 off 27 with a catch, 67 off 36, and then 8 runs, and then 4 runs. So that all adds up to 55.3 points a game. But to be honest, he's had 2 scores above 100 and one in the 90s, and then 3 scores below 10. Four scores 10 and under. So his scoring's just very volatile, and that's what you can expect from him, volatility. You're not going to get a consistent run of form, I don't think. His opening partner, I expect to be Tom Rogers. Again, because he's a fringe player, he hasn't played much domestic international T20, international cricket or T20 circuits. He's not on there, so he's really just Australian domestic cricket. So he's played 4 games in the Marsh Cup for scores of 14, 45, 38 and 11. So he's averaging 27 right now with the bat. Now, this is the exciting one. Also, I should mention Tom Rogers' price is 116,000. So I think that's an avoid for me early on. If he gets a bit low or has some form leading into this thing, we could change our opinion. But for now, I'd stay away. Now, number 3, Glenn Maxwell, 118,000. The first pick player, without a doubt. To be honest, I recorded an initial podcast for this 24 hours ago, and I had assumed he'd be around 160. Okay, and 160, I was like, well, you can go either way on Maxi, really. He's not my first pick, but at 118,000, he's a walk-up starter, first picked, set and forget for the season, I believe, because he will just bat 3, he'll bowl close to 3 overs in my opinion, but we'll get into that later. His form. In the T20 Blast, he had scores of 47 off 27, and then none for 14 with the ball with 2 dots, 1 for 19 off 3 overs with 4 dots and 2 runs, 0 runs, a catch, 1 for 28 off 3 overs and 7 dots, 2 for 19 off 4 overs, 12 dots, 29 runs off 22 balls, none for 18 off 1 over, 1 dot, 5 runs, 1 run, then 15, 1 for 19 off 4 overs with 11 dots, then 9 runs, 2 for 22 off 3 overs with 6 dots, none for 3 with 3 dots and a catch and 14 runs, and 1 for 32 off 4 overs with 10 dots. You see, he just accumulates easily. So, 20 runs and going at 8 and over and taking a wicket, it's a solid game. It's not a game I'd rate above a 7 out of 10, but it's 81 points, and that's just an evidence of why this game is so conducive to all-rounders. Then he goes and scores 44 off 20, with none for 27 off 2 overs with 3 dots, 2 for 20 off 3 overs, 5 dots and 19 runs, 10 runs, none for 9 off 1 over, a dot and 2 catches, and then finally 32 off 23, none for 28 off 2 overs and a dot. 43 points there to bring his total average in the T20 Blast to average of 51.3 pretty comfortably. Just something I put up on the socials today. The last Big Bash game he played, he scored 154 in. So, you're paying 118,000 for a guy that can go and do that. I think, in fact, he has the highest in the new scoring system. He's the highest individual score of all time. I think it's second to Stoinis for a single game. Speaking of the devil, Marcus Stoinis. He's been playing Major League Cricket, and he's going all right. So in Major League Cricket, he scored 6 runs and then none for 40 or 4 overs with 5 dots. Then he scores none for 28 or 4 overs, 5 dots and 15 runs. Then 37 runs of 18 balls, none for 39 or 4 overs and 4 dots, a catch and 3 runs. And then his final game Major League Cricket was 13 runs, 1 for 40 or 4 overs and 7 dots. So after that, he was averaging 44.6 points. Then he plays South Africa. He has scores of, in these 2 games he played, he had 6, 3 for 18 with the ball, or 4 overs with 4 dots, and then 37 runs off 21 balls. So he goes 112 and 106 against South Africa to boost his overall average recently to 64.43. Is he in form? I guess so. I guess he is in form. In saying that, I much prefer Maxwell. He's definitely bowling quite a lot of overs just because they don't have economy rate style spinner now. Usama Mia, we'll get into it later. He's a wicket taker. He's not someone that's going to tie down an end for 3 or 4 overs, you know. Whereas, say, Glenn Maxwell will, or Adam Zampa did, you know. And that's why I think Glenn Maxwell will bowl 3 overs. I expect Stoinis to bowl 2, and then one of the 4 frontline bowlers might only bowl 3. They're going to manage Coulter-Nile a fair bit too. You just got to take that into account. At number 5, I have Hilton Cartwright. So he's only really played Sheffield Shield this summer, and he has scores of 5, 50, 56, 16, 28, 27, and 82 for a 37.7 average. It's pretty decent with the bat. But again, unless there's mass injuries and he becomes the all-rounder, I don't think you're ever going to pick him. Bo Webster. Now, he got drafted in for England in their 50 over, well, to play in England in their 50 over comp, not for England. But he had scores of 73 and then none for 45 with the ball, 0 and 2 for 47 with the ball, 39 and 1 for 60 with the ball, 37 and 1 for 25, 26 and 3 for 38, 69 and 2 for 35. Then in the Marsh Cup, he scores 83 and 2 for 17 with the ball, 65 and none for 16, and 42 and 1 for 45. That brings his batting average to 48.2 and his wickets per game to 1.3. Now that says he's in pretty decent nick. He's in good form. You know, he's getting a lot of starts. That's good for Supercoach. Now, however, I don't think the role will be. It depends. If let's say hypothetically, they play Sam Harper at 8, Campbell Kellaway at 7. Well, then all of a sudden you've got 8 overs from Glenn Maxwell, Marcus Stoinis, and Bo Webster. That's when things get interesting. Now, I've got Bo Webster batting 5 and Hilton Cartwright batting 6 here. I don't think they'll name Campbell Kellaway. I just think you've got Coulter-Nile, you've got Usama Mir, you've got Harris Ralph, you've got Mark Steckity. They feel like walk-up starters. I suppose NCN can be injured / managed, in which case you might bowl Maxi, Stoinis, and Webster a few more overs. Now, because of the price, because Bo Webster is 173,000 compared to Stoinis and Maxi being 110, 120, I lean towards them. But you know, they're worth. Everyone's worth considering. I should mention Hilton Cartwright. His price is 92,100, and Marcus Stoinis, his price is 116,700. So, you know, pretty decent prices for them. Cartwright's pretty cheap, so if he got if he was named in the top 3, I think he'd be fairly picked. But I just don't think that'll happen. Depends on where they bat Harry Brook. If Harry Brook bats at 5, then I see Maxi opening, and well, Cartwright would bat 3. In which case you would pick Cartwright and you would stay far away from Harry Brook. But I see Harry Brook opening. But that's just me. Sam Harper, we'll go over this one quickly. Way too expensive. He's 130,100, and he's not in that good form. So he's got scores of 10 with a catch, 96 with a catch, 28 and 13 with a catch. That's in a Sheffield Shield game. 8 runs and a catch, and then 29 and a duck with a catch. So he's taking a catch a game. Who cares? He's a keeper. He's going to take a catch a game, right? Batting average 22.4. It's just grim reading, isn't it? We'll go to Nathan called. I've got Usama Mir batting 8. Now, Usama Mir is someone I was interested in and still am to an extent, but I'd like to just see a bit more from him or hear a bit more about him and how they're going to use him. Because I'm not sure. He's 125,000, and we'll get into it, but I think there's better options there at the price. But in the 100, he had scores of 32 off 17 and 2 for 27 off 20 balls. So I'm only giving you a form for the 100 because there's no point with the Supercoach scores. It doesn't really translate all that well. 6 dots in that game as well. None for 26 off 10 balls, a dot ball, and 1 run. 7 runs, 4 for 19 off 20 balls, and 9 dots. And then 1 run and none for 45 off 20 balls. Now, the T20 Blast. That's when we start cooking with gas. And 3 for 21 off 4 overs with 8 dots. 138 Supercoach points. None for 24 off 4 overs, 6 dots, 9 runs and a catch, 40 points. 32 off 15 balls. 2 for 33 off 4 overs and 7 dots, 104 Supercoach points. This is a doozy of a game, this one here. 3 for 22 off 4 overs, 8 dots, and 32 runs off 16 balls. 150 Supercoach points. That's ridiculous. 4 for 22 off 4 overs, 13 dots, and a catch. 128 Supercoach points. None for 31 off 4 overs, 7 dots, and a catch. 22 Supercoach points. So a bit of a drop there. A catch, 1 for 19 off 4, 11 dots, 61 points. None for 44 off 4, 7 dots, and a duck, 7 points. Yeah, dropped again. But then a catch, 1 for 47 off 4 overs and 4 dots, 34 points. 3 for 38 off 4 overs, 3 dots, and a catch, 83 points. 39 runs, 2 for 20 off 4 overs, and 12 dots, 111 Supercoach points. That brings us to a total of 79.8 points per game in the T20 Blast. That is form. That's serious form. And that's why I'm considering him, because the way that the Stars play, they lose wickets late. And so you could see, I can see Osama Mir coming in with 3 or 4 overs to go, scoring some quick runs. Obviously, they won't want to be 6 down with 4 overs to go very regularly. So, you proceed with caution there. Then, batting at 9, I have Nathan Coulter-Nile. Hasn't played any domestic cricket since the Big Bash last year, so there's no form on him. Number 10, I have Mark Steckity. It's got to be the lowest he's batted in Big Bash because he's usually an 8 or a 9 for the Brisbane Heat, but he himself hasn't played that much cricket. He's played a little bit of Shield cricket, but he's played a bit for Australia A. He's got scores of 1 for 39, 1 for 45, and 2 for 39. I think he's still same old, same old. Will he be the death bowler alongside Harris Ralph? Yeah, I'd say so. But they've got two decent death bowling options and 1 good death bowling option, Harris Ralph. So they seem to be covered there where they've been exposed in the past. And then, speak of the man, Harris Ralph. 100. Oh, I should run you through prices. Keep forgetting to do that. So, where were we up to? Yeah, Usama Mir is $125,000. Nathan Coulter-Nile is $172,000, so that's an avoid for me. Mark Steckity is $118,500, and the guy we're about to cover, Harris Ralph, $100,000. So he has form in the Major League Cricket. He played alongside Marcus Stoinis. He got none for 34 with 12 dots, so 12 points. 1 for 42 with 6 dots and 1 run, 27 points. 1 for 40 off 4 overs, 10 dots, 30 points. 3 for 20 off 4 overs, 9 dots, 99 points. And 1 for 32 off 4 overs, a maiden and 10 dots and 6 runs, 56 points. Which comes to a total of 44.8 points per game. I see Harris Ralph and I'm thinking he's a genuine wicket taker. early on, I remember last year early on, batters didn't do very well. It took them a while. Bowler heavy was the way to go. I lean towards Harris Ralph over, say, I don't know, like a Zach. Well, Zach Crawley's 5K cheaper. He's 120,000, but those guys at similar prices, I lean towards the bowler over the batter right now. They both got the double. Harris Ralph even has a bye in round 2. So in terms of availability, Zach Crawley's got more of it early in the first couple of rounds, but I just see Harris Ralph being a genuine wicket taker and also a beneficiary to your team in round 2 when you can do bench loops because of the guys in the buys. So there is something there for me in Harris Ralph, and so I've picked him. Supercoach analysis. Well, Glenn Maxwell. As I said, I see him batting 3. I see him bowling 3 overs, and I think that role that he was put in the T20 Blast was a very similar role. I see him sort of, at the end of the season, we're going to be looking back and we're thinking, yeah, it makes sense that he was first picked. 118,000 for a guy that probably averages closer to 60 than not. He's going to probably finish with an average between 55 and 65 points a game. That'd be my best guess. So I really do think he's a sure thing in your team. He was my first pick. I imagine he's yours. But people pick differently. Harry Brook, a lot of it depends on batting position. If he's opening the batting, I'm interested. If he's not opening the batting, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole ever this season. Glenn Maxwell we covered. Stoin. I sort of lean towards giving him the first 2 games. He's very role dependent, whereas Maxi isn't. If Stoin's in a good role, Stoin's on, If you've got him batting at 4 and bowling 3 overs, particularly when against South Africa, Australia used him with the new ball, as I think they could here for the Melbourne Stars, then we've got something. We're cooking with gas there. Usama Mir there's Usama Mir, Mark Steckity and Harris Ralph. They're the 3 frontline bowlers from the Stars that I'd pick. I wouldn't pick Coulter at the price. Mir, we've touched on. In terms of physical profiling, he's 190 centimetres tall and he's a leg spinner. He's going to get bounce, and we'll get into the ground data for the MCG soon, but I think it'll be very beneficial. Mark Steckity, as I say, is a sort of guy that if he bowls at Brisbane with the big grounds, he was really good at the death. He'd pick up a lot of wickets. I think with cutters into the wicket, I think he'll do a similar thing here at Melbourne. Decent option, actually, to start the season. Harris Ralph, he's a high-quality bowler. I think he'll get a lot out of this wicket, and I think he'll perform really... I've got a feeling he has a really good Big Bash campaign. Now, the ground data. This is the thing I've been most excited for. Looking into ground data, it's an interesting thing that not many people look at when they're thinking about Supercoach. It does give you that extra edge, I reckon. Because you sort of get, if you look at the ground data from the previous season, you start to see, you get a bit of predictability as to what can happen on these pitches and at these grounds, because cricket's such a volatile game. You can score 100 and the next game you can score a duck. It's such a volatile game. You've got to find ways to get the best amount of predictability or consistency. And the best way to do that is look at historical data at these venues, I think. So at the MCG, the average score batting first is 174 with 8 wickets down. Okay? So I think that's around your average score. I think it's more wickets than what you'd expect. I think that largely comes down to the big square boundaries at the MCG. I think, as I touched on briefly before, Mark Steckity bowling cutters into the wicket. I think he'll get a fair few wickets from bowling that at the death. Usama Mir, as I said, tall leg spinner, lots of bounce, means you're more likely to play square of the wicket rather than in front of you because, it's going to be too high up. Because of that high release point, he's going to get top spin for sure. And I think he could be an anomaly to the statistic that I'm about to tell you, and that's that spin bowlers don't get as many wickets as pace bowlers at the MCG. Pace bowlers last year got 47 wickets at the MCG, which is 60.26% of total wickets taken at the MCG, whereas spin bowlers only got 26 wickets and got 33.3% of total wickets. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that doesn't add up to 100%. Runouts. That's why. In terms of average wickets, in the first innings, 8 wickets on average taken. In the second innings, the average score is 7 for 163. Now, in terms of that, I look at that and I'm thinking, well, so it'd be better to bat first then, right? Well, no, because the percentage of games won by the team batting first is actually only 33%. So in terms of using this to predict wins, the winning team, I wouldn't use these sorts of statistics. This is mainly to, predict Supercoach performances for these players. This is not really a great betting tool if you're interested in that sort of thing. I look at this and I'm thinking, well, okay, paces at the MCG, bowling into the wicket, slower balls. That's how you'll get your death wickets. That's what most bowlers, pacers do at the death anyway. So that it should line up as such. Usama Mir, I think he'll do fine there because you've got a big ground, you've got top spin, you've got bounce. He'll be hard to play on the MCG. I really do believe that. So yeah, that's the ground data. Nothing too unsurprising. I was a bit surprised, however, that... Sorry, I'm just getting the next part of this up. I was a bit surprised, however, that pacers had taken more wickets than spinners. I did think that it would be pacers that would... Oh, I did think it would be spinners, that would have dominated the wicket taking. But, yeah. I don't know. My mind's a bit all over the place. I apologise. Okay. The early schedule for the Melbourne Stars. Round 1, they have the double. Round 2, they have the bye. Round 3, they have another double. So don't sell your Stars, just bench them. And then round 4, they have, which is because there's less games, right? So you're going to see... this is interesting. I've just had a look here. And, we'll cover this in latter podcasts, but the Perth Scorchers have 2 byes in a row. That's going to be interesting because you wouldn't hold any Scorchers over that period, would you? No. But we'll get into that another podcast. So yeah, pretty hectic start. Obviously, you've got the triple game round for the Brisbane Heat, round 1. Can't wait to see how that turns out. But I did have an initial thought that the way you should treat the triple game rounds is like this. You have the Heat, you consider them to be playing the double. So you captain someone from the Brisbane Heat. And then you're going to consider the other double teams, which is the Sixers, the Scorchers, the Stars, and the Renegades, as single game teams. But then you'll look at, say, the Strikers, the Hurricanes, and the Thunder as though they're having the bye round 1. They're pretty much just there on your bench. You're not going to really be starting these guys in your round 1 team from those 3 teams, but you will start guys from the Sixers, the Scorchers, the Stars, and the Renegades, and you'll captain someone from the Brisbane Heat. Personally, I'm going Michael Neser captain. He was my second pick player when I saw the draw, not because of how much I like him, just because I know that he will perform pretty well across those 3 games. He's really good with a new ball. As I say, bowlers dominate early. I just think it will lean that way. Well, there you have it. Thank you for listening. If you want more content from myself, follow us on Supercoach Guns on Twitter and bbl.supercoach.guns on Instagram. We'll catch you next week when we look at the Adelaide Strikers. They're an interesting team. I quite like. Their draw's pretty quiet. It's pretty chill. They only have the one bye and two doubles, so it's a pretty consistent draw. And I'm looking at a certain player who is a fallen gun to build not my team around, but to build my bench around. I think it'll be pretty obvious who that is. Anyway, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening.